Thank you. That's so much fun. All right. Today we continue on to the 12 powers. We're at 12, we're at the power of the 11th power, and it's the power of elimination, renunciation, sacrifice, releasing, letting go, you know, that moving on out kind of energy. It's probably the most sticky of the 12 powers. It's, to me, it's one of the most unfun of the 12 powers. I mean, as spiritual folks, we love to say, oh, I'm working on my faith and I am having faith in the universe. And that's what I say. But when it comes to releasing, letting go, there's a reason that Charles Fillmore called it elimination, right? Elimination. It really is just about our ability to release something that is no longer working for us. It doesn't serve us. So we have to first recognize that it's limiting us. But then not only do we have to recognize it's limiting us, we then have to deny that it can have any power over us. And then we have to eliminate it and replace it with something else. So this could be a habit that we want to clear out of our life that doesn't serve us. It could be a relationship. It could be a horrible job. It could be that we want to maybe be healthy and give up eating junk food. But there's something in our life we would rather have, but something right here and now is keeping us from getting that. And so it's the thing keeping us from having that we have to eliminate out of our life. Now, we may choose to let it go, but we may still dwell on it after we say, yeah, I let it go. Like every time I go off sugar and flour, like, yeah, I'm off flour, but then I can't stop obsessing how somebody else is eating a tortilla in front of me. So I'm not really able to let it go. Now, this is the power behind the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, that Sodom and Gomorrah, it's a place of crime and corruption. It's where the overall consciousness is on instant gratification. It's focused on pleasure and sensation. It's lack consciousness, because instant gratification, we're willing to settle for something here and now that's really easy instead of pouring our energy into this bigger thing we would like to create. So it's lack consciousness. So Lot was visited by the angels who told him to get his family out of there, that not too long and Sodom and Gomorrah are just going to be a big hole in the ground. So Lot took his family, but his wife, she wasn't happy about that. She didn't want to leave. It's where her friends were. It's where she grew up, right? Why did they really have to leave? Come on, it wasn't that bad, right? Yeah, so maybe there's some iniquity, but a den of iniquity, is that what they call it? She's like, we grew up here. This is where our friends are. But Lot took his whole family away. She kept looking over her shoulder, though. This is why she was turned into salt, a pillar of salt. Salt represents that preservative, and she was staying stuck in her previous life. She walked away from it, she did, but she couldn't release it. Because for us to really, really release something, we got to find a replacement. Okay, we've got to find something else to fill that. Like for myself, when I think about my food sensitivities and I can't eat that tortilla or I'll end up feeling crappy, I have to replace that thought. I can't dwell on that. It's unfair. I can't eat tortillas. Why does everybody else get to eat a tortilla? It's like life hates me because I can't eat tortillas. I just feel miserable and bitter, right? Then life smells like bitterness and old shoes. We have to find a replacement. So for me, that would look like, well, every time I go off flour, I feel better and I get rid of the brain fog. Oh, that's what I really love, is having a clear brain, having clarity, because then I write more things. I have better ideas. I never have ideas when I'm on tortillas. So we are able to recognize that there's a certain way of living that's not serving us or serving what it is that we want to create. However, if we keep lamenting on what we have to give up and how unfair it is, we are still limited. We're still unable to tap into that zeal that keeps us moving forward. Okay, the zeal that like is giving us the energy and the motivation to create the big thing that we want to create, the next thing, the next bit of good that we're going to call in. Charles Fillmore said, there must be a renunciation or a letting go of old thoughts before the new can find place in consciousness. See, when we get rid of an old thought that doesn't serve us, there's a space left there. So we want to put the new thing right there. Otherwise, just like a garden, if you clear all the weeds out of a garden but don't plant anything, what comes back? Weeds. So it's the same thing, will just keep coming back. We've got to choose something new, right? That's what keeps us from serving two masters, right? We try to serve two masters. We let it go, but we still lament about it. So we want to be able to focus on what we want to create. Letting go helps us do that, to focus on what we want to create and just really, really release the thing that doesn't serve us anymore. This is why in Unity, we have something called denials that also go with our affirmations. We all love affirmations, right? Because we love to walk around saying wonderful things about ourselves and our life. But denial is really what gets it rolling. Denials are what clears the way. Denial is the process of basically casting our burden. We recognize and accept, okay, yeah, there's a lot of difficulty in getting rid of this. Okay, Lot's wife, it's not easy living your whole life or leaving your whole life. It's not easy to leave that all behind. Nobody said it was going to be easy, right? Nobody said that releasing something makes everything easy. So we have the power of denial to recognize, okay, yeah, this is going to be hard, but it doesn't have to control me anymore. It cannot stop me from being the creative being that I came here to be. Now, if Lot's wife had used the power of denials, this may have been what it looked like for her. No, I do not want to move. This is a terrible idea. What do those angels know? They want us to leave our whole life? Like all our friends are here. Where are we going? Do you know what kind of job you're going to have? How are you going to support us? Okay, she could affirm that, or she could recognize that, yeah. She could say, I don't want to move, and I have a million excuses why it's a terrible idea. But then she could say, okay, so I hand it over to God. I hand it over. I don't know how we're going to get a new house. I don't know how Job's going to support us. I don't know how I'm supposed to make new friends. I only know that I do. I don't know how it all works out. I only know that it does, because there's that within me that knows what to do, how to do it, and it compels me to act on what it knows. I'll be open. I get inspired. I'll get inspired and I'll do a new thing. So that's how the denials work, right? And then that allows us then to move into our affirmations. So the denials are just helping us recognize that that thing out there, the limiting condition, the thing we don't want to do, or the thing we don't want to give up, it cannot ever keep us from being the creative being that we came here to be. Then we affirm our desire. That's it. Now, what happened to Lot's wife happens to a lot of people, right? There's a big change. Life as we know it is over, right? Life as we know it, there's no going back. Like right now, we're looking at the big gaping hole that is our life, that used to be our life, because of the pandemic, right? That has changed all of us and our life and how we live life. It has changed us so much. It's changed how we do things, how we show up, in our circles of life. But it cannot take away who we really are. It cannot stop what we came here to create. It cannot change the fact that we are a highly creative being came here to create something. So it can't take that away from us. Now, the center in our body for elimination is the abdominal region, right there, right? And I think this is really appropriate, because this is the part of our body that eliminates, right? Our body physically, we're taking in stuff all the time. The air we breathe, the food, the liquid, even stuff that goes on our skin. right? The body's taking in something, and then through its complex process, it eliminates. It knows what to take in, what to utilize, and then it knows what doesn't serve it. Now, our body actually has physical muscles that push this stuff out, because releasing is not about just dropping something and looking away. No, it's a process. We've got to push it out of our life. The disciple that represents release is Thaddeus, also known as Jude or Saint Jude. He represents clearing out the negative thinking. I think he only wrote one book in the gospel, the book of Judah, Judah, Jude. And he tells a story about Archangel Michael rebuking the devil. Archangel Michael just rebuked the devil, right? He just rebuked him, right? Remember, to us, the devil is the adversary, the little saboteur sitting right there on our shoulder. You really should eat that tortilla because your life is hard. It's not fair. You should just get to eat it, right? The saboteur keeps trying to tell us, go back to our old ways, do the small limiting behavior that's right here. So we sacrifice the great thing that we want to create in our life. Archangel Michael did not get involved in a conversation with this guy. Instead, Archangel Michael just rebuked him. You have no power here. Be gone. Be gone. He didn't get involved. Now, the Harry Potter character that I chose for release. Here we go. Here we go. Professor Severus Snape. Professor Severus Snape. He's a very complex character. I believe, the most complex character in the Harry Potter series. His entire life was basically a life of sacrifice. At a young age, he sacrificed the thing that he loved the most because he could not release a behavior that limited him. He could not stop doing something that was harmful. So he lost what he loved the most. Now, Professor Snape was the head of the Slytherin's house. He was the potions master. He grew up in the town where Harry's mother grew up, Lily Evans, who later became Lily Potter. Snape's parents were very dysfunctional, and so his relationship with Lily meant the world to him. They became friends when they were 9 years old, and he loved her right from the beginning. Now, his friendship with her didn't last, because when they got to Hogwarts and he went into the Slytherin house, Lily went into Gryffindor. She met James Potter, who she'd later marry. James and his friends did not like Snape. Snape did not like them. And they did some pretty terrible things to him. Now, Snape didn't wear a halo by any means, but they actually almost took his life. They actually almost killed him. And then Dumbledore told him that he wasn't allowed to tell anybody what happened. And so he became obsessed with revenge. Lily ended up getting really mad at him. He did something and she could not forgive him for it. And he couldn't even share with her why he did what he did. He ended up calling her a name, and their friendship ended. She would not forgive him after that. And so that cost him, as much as he loved her more than anything, he couldn't let go of his obsession with getting revenge on James and his friends. So he graduated from Hogwarts, and then he became a professor there at the age of 21. He was the master of potions. At this time, Voldemort had risen to power, and so along with the other Slytherins that joined the Death Eaters, which are the bad guys, Snape joined the Death Eaters. But then he found out that Voldemort was going to go after Lily and her family. And so Snape decided right then he would not be part of them, be part of the Death Eaters anymore. He went to Dumbledore. He begged Dumbledore to save Lily and her family. Dumbledore said that he would, but he wanted Snape to do something for him too. Snape told him, anything, anything. So Dumbledore told Snape he wanted him to be basically a double agent. Snape would have to sacrifice everything to walk in these two worlds, to actually be a good guy, but pretend to the whole world that he was a bad guy. Now, we get stuck sometimes living in two worlds. We try walking by faith, but then we get caught up in the conditions of our life. We start walking by sight. This will cause suffering in our life because we're going to constantly try to manage conditions. It's not until we can become single-minded, right? Focus with our single eye on just walking on faith that we will be able to find peace. But we've got to sacrifice this need to let conditions control us and our behavior. Now, in Snape's world, Lily still ended up getting killed. Lily and James. Harry survived, as you all know, but they were betrayed from inside their inner circle. There was nothing Dumbledore could do to protect them. Now, at that point, Harry or Snape told Dumbledore that he wanted to die. And Dumbledore told him, no, I need you. Voldemort's going to come back to power. And I need you to help me protect Harry. So he agreed. He agreed and he stayed. He made a promise, another sacrifice now. But to keep his promise and his loyalty to Dumbledore to protect Harry, he had to do things that were terrible things. He did things because of Dumbledore wanted him to do these things that Snape even worried was putting his own soul at risk. Snape had to do things that made other people hate him. He sacrificed his relationships. He had to pretend to be a Death Eater, but he didn't really like any of those people. But at Hogwarts, he had to act all disdainful toward everyone because if Voldemort figured out that he was making friends at Hogwarts, he might think there was something up and that could put people at Hogwarts at risk. Snape always seemed to be walking on two sides. He was right, wrong, good, evil. He did make some bad choices, but he had an immense capacity for love. An immense capacity for love. Something that you have to kind of dive into to discover this is you look at the Death Eaters. Okay, these are people who follow darkness. They follow negativity. They're not tapped into their inner light. They're constantly looking out here for the energy to feed them. So they follow the negativity and the darkness, right? In our own universe, that could look like somebody who's a narcissist or an energy vampire, like manipulating people out in their lives to get the energy and get their egos fed, okay? So the Death Eaters did the same thing. The Death Eaters didn't live in integrity. They just did whatever served them in that moment. And they were terrified of Voldemort. So they acted out of fear. They lived their life based on conditions in their life. Now, the Death Eaters could not do something that other wizards and witches could do, and that was cast a Patronus charm. Now, in the Harry Potter universe, the Patronus, you create a Patronus because you have the light and you have love within you. You are able to access a beautiful, loving memory. You're able to feel love. You channel that through the wand, and that presents itself as a brilliant white light full of such a high vibration of love that it banishes any negativity that's around it. So Death Eaters could never cast this Patronus. Snape could cast a Patronus because he had that access to love. Snape was always in integrity. He did the hard things. He kept his promises. He sacrificed what could have been easy. He would have just told somebody, yeah, I'm really a good guy. I'm so lonely. If he would have told Harry, I loved your mom. If he would have told Lily when he was in school, your boyfriend tried to kill me. They may have maintained their friendship, but he didn't. He kept his word, even though to do otherwise would have been so much easier on him. He kept his word. This is the power of sacrifice, release, elimination in our life. It keeps us in integrity, so we keep our promises to ourselves, right? We eliminate the thing in our life that keeps us like wanting to keep breaking our promise and do this easier thing instead. And even though it's not as great as getting this thing in our life, at least we can have this little thing now. Sacrifice keeps us from doing that, so we keep our promises. We don't settle for something lesser because it's easier. Now, for Snape, everything started with love, his unconditional love for Lily Potter. You go into the power of imagination. It was here Snape, he was told by Dumbledore Voldemort would return. He had to be a double agent. How would that look? He basically created a blueprint. He'd have to be he'd have to be a crusty curmudgeon at Hogwarts to still interact with the Death Eaters. So he kind of saw how he would have to act like a spy. Now, from the imagination, he had to ask himself, can I do this? Yeah, he knew he could. He knew he could. He had faith in Dumbledore, and this is what Dumbledore was telling him to do. So he had faith. So, yes, he made the choice. Yes. He used the power, which is mastery over our thoughts, and the power of strength to keep focusing on the end game instead of on the conditions and how hard everything was and how he didn't really have anybody to confide in. He used the power of will to keep choosing over and over and over again to do the hard thing, right? Because of the end game required that of him. He knew he had to behave in a certain way, even though it meant being humiliated. He had to behave in a certain way, no matter the shame he had to bear because of that. He constantly had to choose to do the right thing instead of going the easy way. He embodied the power of wisdom. There were many times he had to just know to keep his mouth shut because somebody talking to him was expecting a reaction. And if that was a Death Eater or Voldemort, his reaction to what they said could have caused him to reveal that he was helping protect Harry Potter. So he had his game face on all the time. He knew the power of understanding. It was Snape who was always putting things together. Like, what is going on here? Potter's in trouble again. Okay, there's someone in the castle. We've got a werewolf, right? We got to fix these things. Okay, Snape kept putting the pieces together. He used the power of order. He's the potions master, right? Potions in our universe looks like chemistry. Chemistry, you handle with a lot of respect. You do chemistry stuff in the right order. You do it with specificness. You have a method to it, because if you don't, you blow up your chemistry lab. Right, Linda? Right? So, order, zeal. Zeal is our impulse to move forward. Now, to us, it looks like enthusiasm, excitement, maybe even some joy. Snape embodied zeal, but it was in the way he took action. As soon as he was inspired, as soon as he gained understanding, he knew when to move, and he moved. He didn't contemplate it. He didn't navel gaze. He didn't ask questions. He moved. He moved. His faith in Dumbledore kept him going, even though Dumbledore had him doing some pretty terrible things. He never lost faith in Dumbledore. And it was love, really. We circle back to love because of Lily, because of loving her since he was 9 years old, which by the end of book 7 is 29 years he's loved her. 29 years, even though the majority of that time she wasn't even in his life anymore. He continued to love her. He continued to do the hard things. He continued to make the choices instead of taking the easy way out. Eventually, his actions became a catalyst to allow more good to be called forth into the world. All those years after, all of those years, his path, as painful as it was always guided by love. Always. Always. Now, this is a tragic story of sacrifice. Snape was stuck in his pain. Snape had a painful past that he could not truly let go of. And so I thought he was perfect for this, because the power of release is not easy for us. It's not easy for any of us. It's not just like holding a ball and then just dropping the ball, releasing a ball, because life is a golden retriever or a black lab that brings that ball right back to us, puts it right back in our hand, only now it's slimy and has like some nasty bits from the yard stuck on it. and it just keeps bringing it back. And now we need a paper towel. Okay. This is why I love that Charles Fillmore called it elimination, renunciation. Elimination. We literally have physical muscles in our body to help us eliminate things. In our own life, it takes strength and fortitude to release, to eliminate, to let go. Using renunciation. Okay, this is a command. Be gone. Be gone. You have no power here. The saboteur doesn't go away. It keeps coming back, and it's going to keep trying to engage you in conversation. You don't want to do that. That'd be really hard. Okay, so we go into renunciation right away so that we can then go into our denial. We look around our life. Okay, where am I giving my power that's keeping me feeling stuck? Oh, right there. That's where I'm giving my power. I have to leave my home where I've lived my whole life. I have to leave Sodom and Gomorrah, and it's unfair. Oh, right there, where I injured my back and my disc is disintegrating and I can never teach yoga again. Right there. That's where I'm stuck. Right there in a relationship that I lost because of my perfectionism and my workaholism. Right there. That's where I'm stuck. Now we go into the 12 powers. Now, when you see the 12 powers, we see them as a list, and the list starts with faith. But I really feel like in the cycle of activity of the 12 powers, we're starting in the imagination. Okay, because we have to look at what's not working. What is it we want to sacrifice? My being hung up on having to leave Sodom and Gomorrah and how unfair it is. We use our imagination. Well, what do we really want? Well, I can't stay because now it's a big hole in the ground. So what am I going to do? Well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know there's that within me that guides me. Maybe I'll start a book club. Maybe Lot can be self-employed and work from home. Maybe that's what I can do. Maybe that's what we'll do. But we open a way. Okay, we put it in our imagination. Okay, I can't be a yoga teacher anymore. Well, what can I do? Well, I love teaching. There's other things to teach. I learned how to teach one thing. I can learn to teach another. That's what we put in our imagination. But then we ask the question, can I do it? If our answer is yes, we go right into faith. Yes, I can. I trust what works through me, for me, as me. I trust that. But if we choose fear, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know. What if I get to this new town, this new life, and nobody likes me? And they're all like, hey, you're from that place that God smited. We don't want to have our place smited either. We don't want you bringing that smiting with us, with you. Okay, it's hard to learn to teach new things. Sure, I was a yoga teacher. I wasn't really a yoga teacher. But maybe learning something else would be really hard, right? We've chosen from fear. We're having our doubts. This is where we call in renunciation. This is where we call it in. Okay, yeah, maybe being a teacher, learning to teach something else will be hard. But you know what? I've done other hard stuff. I don't know how this is going to look, but I trust what works through me. And then renunciation takes us into faith. Our denial then takes us into faith. We affirm it. Yeah, I'm going to be some kind of new teacher, and I don't know what that looks like yet, but I know I'm going to do it, right? So we go into faith. This whole process of creating heaven on earth, it's about elimination and then replacing that with something better. That's how we do this, right? The garden of our life, we clear all those weeds, and we don't just let the weeds sit there because we know, or we don't just let the garden sit there empty because we know more weeds will just come back. With our intention, we choose the seeds: tomatoes, artichokes, love, compassion, courage, creativity. Our garden reflects our intention. The process of elimination clears the way. We move back into faith, and that is how we create heaven on earth. So until next time, remember, you are the activity of spirit in a body. You are the heart and the hands of spirit in this world. You are soul designed to do all this stuff. You're a soul designed for growth and goodness in everything you do. You are blessed, and so it is.